to Melissa Dixion with CDI Janitorial out of Birmingham, Alabama. It's a family-owned company since 1987. She and her husband do it together. One of their core things that they really focus on is building relationships with their clients and retaining all of their clients. So that means huge customer service and client satisfaction. She's been an award-winning educator for 25 years before she joined her husband in the business, and she had no previous business experience before joining CDI. Melissa is a giver in every way. She volunteers to help with anything and everything, and even when people say to her, Melissa, you can't do everything, her answer is always, I don't mind at all. Not only that, but Melissa is also a workout machine, workout fanatic, and she and I ended up in the same class together on our Pelotons here recently, so we'll have to touch on that for sure. And so I am super excited to have you hear Melissa's entire story because there's so much to learn about you and your business by going through her experience and her story. So let's get started. So as you know, this show is all about sharing the stories of B&I heroes, everyday business owners who are working with a team to increase their sales and grow their businesses. And you can find us here every Friday at 10 a.m. Central. We'll come to you live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You can just search for B&I Alabama or Megan Chitwood, and you'll also see replays on Instagram and LinkedIn as well. So now let's get to Melissa's story. I'm so excited. Thank you, Melissa, so much for being here to share your story. So,
good morning. I am so thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. So first, let's talk about your business in general, CDI Janitorial. So just tell us a little bit about kind of what it is, how you worked with it, what makes you special? What makes your business really special?
Well, we are a small business here in Birmingham. We've been in business for about 34 years, which is a huge feat for small businesses. It was started by my husband, Charles. He took 1 year of college, realized it wasn't for him. He did not want to work for anybody else, so he started his own cleaning business. And 34 years later, pandemic and everything, we're still around. It's commercial janitorial. Mm-hmm. So we go in and clean office buildings, car dealerships, hospital waiting rooms. I mean, you name it, we've cleaned it. And it's just been fantastic and a blessing for us.
So how did you feel? Because you were an educator, right? You were a teacher during that time. How did you feel about him starting his own business?
Well, we've been married 31 years, and so he started it.
Oh, he had started it beforehand. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. He started it 3 years before, and the entire time I was teaching, I played probably 2% of the business. I would do some correspondence, I would type up the proposals, but to be honest with you, I didn't have a clue about anything. We would drive down the road, and he would go, "Yep, that's a client. They're a client," and I didn't even know. I didn't know the employees. I knew nothing other than, again, 1 or 2% of the business.
Absolutely. And so what do you think, has kind of been his claim to fame to keep it going? Because we're building up to when you joined him. So for about 29 years, right? What do you think was successful in what you guys were doing?
He never wanted to be the largest cleaning company in town. He always focused on customer retention. It was never about, I'm going to be the biggest and the best. I'm going to be the best for my clients I have. Because I told you earlier, we're not about trying to find new clients when we can keep the clients we have. And so he is fantastic with customer service.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. And so you decided to join him. So 25 years as a teacher. One, what is it like to be a teacher for 25 years, just in general, to start with?
You know what? It was absolutely an incredible experience. I taught high school students, I taught English and journalism, and it was everything I could have ever dreamed about. But I was working really, really hard. And my husband said, you know what? Why don't you prepare to retire? We took an entire year for me to prepare to retire and join the business. And it will be your plan B. And it truly has been a great plan B.
So what was your thought process going through? Like he said, hey, why don't you think about joining the business? Like, what were you thinking during that time?
You know, I thought I could handle it. I thought, no problem. I will work an hour or two a day, and then I'll go have lunch with friends, and this will be the easiest thing I've ever, been involved in. I mean, how hard could it be if I've been a classroom teacher for 25 years? And oh boy, was I wrong. I knew nothing. I had no skills. I couldn't sell anything. This was a business that I had literally watched my husband live and breathe for, almost 30 years, but apparently I wasn't paying attention. I knew nothing. I could not sell the business. I couldn't tell you anything about what the business did. I would have people ask me about particular floors, and I didn't know. I was at a loss, and I knew that I had to find that solution, and that's where BNI came in.
Nice. So yeah, tell us. So what was, when you found BNI, kind of what was the solution that you were trying to solve for yourself?
I knew that I needed to be around like-minded people who were successful, who could teach me. And I just happened to run into Sydney Edmonds, who is our chapter president at a chamber event. It turns out that one of her children actually went to the high school I taught. And so we sort of had a mutual connection. And she was so enthusiastic about BNI. I didn't know. I had no idea. And I just said, sure, why not? What could I lose by attending this chapter? And my gosh, after 90 minutes, I was hooked. I didn't know that it was international. I just thought that this was the one group of people, and I had to be a part of it. And I immediately went home and filled out my application within hours.
So what would you say was the problem you were trying to solve for yourself as you found it?
I needed people who could guide me, and not necessarily people in the cleaning business, because none of my chapter members know anything about janitorial work. But I needed people who could guide me and answer the questions. How do I become a salesperson? How do I handle employees? I mean, the first time I got threatened by an employee, I ran straight next door. Sean Troughton, who is going to be your guest next week, he and I share in an office building. I couldn't run fast enough to him and say, oh my gosh, I think today might be my last day on earth. What do I do? How do I handle it? So, with my chapter members, I learn from their challenges. I learn from their triumphs. And really within the first year, I was a totally, completely different person in the business. The success, I'm telling you, I could not have read any more books. It was being around other salespeople who wanted to be successful, but who also wanted to share in the success of others.
Oh, that is, I just love that was your experience. Your experience also is very similar to mine in that I can't personally tell you how much money I made as a BNI member, but I can absolutely tell you every single person who gave me advice that triggered something that made me more successful every step of the way. And I think that's one of those things we don't necessarily talk about because it isn't our unique selling proposition of referrals. But it just makes me feel so glad to hear you say that. Now, the other one that I think is kind of interesting is it also gave you a different place other than your husband to go talk about business, right? I would think that was kind of a good, like, I've got my own space that I called it was my own space. I could be kind of ignorant and ask a lot of questions.
Well, yeah, it's so funny. Every time I go play golf with my husband, he tries to teach me how to be a better player. And that's where I'm like, I don't need this advice. I don't need to, I don't want to listen to you, even though he's so much better player, golfer. It's the same thing in business. When he would try to give me advice, I'm so competitive. I didn't want to admit that I was flawed. And so we would butt heads. With BNI, it was so much easier for me to take advice from them. And I don't know if that's wrong, but it was, just even so much about the biggest issue I had really was how to handle my employees. Having taught 18-year-olds for 25 years, if I have a knucklehead who does something, it would be nothing for me to go, what is wrong with you? and it was funny. I can't say that to an employee. I can't look at an employee and go, what is wrong with you?
Go to the principal's office.
Right. That employee would no longer be an employee because that's disrespectful. So I had to really take off that teacher hat and understand I'm not working with 18-year-olds. I'm working with adults. And that was the challenge. And so that's where I had conversations with my chapter members. That's where I plugged into BNI University. It was those small, simple things that really catapulted me, to be a very successful businesswoman.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. It has been so fun to watch you and how what you are now as a. So I want to get back to this competitive thing and sidebar the business talk for just a second, because you and I ended up in the same Peloton class this week, right? It was earlier this week.
Correct.
Yeah. So I saw you pop up and I was like, oh, Melissa. And we were going through a Power Zone class. And for those who don't know anything about Peloton, the Power Zone class, they just tell you basically you're trying to get a certain output and all this kind of stuff. So I see Melissa, and Melissa is like, I started a little bit earlier than her, but she is tracking all along the way, just absolutely tracking all along the way. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have worked for 18 months to get my power zones where they are. She must have the same power zones as me. This is amazing. This is awesome. And then at the very end, she blows past me. So I know that Glenna had asked me earlier, like she said, you said that you did beat me. Let me just make it very, very clear. You did. You had the best output at the end of the class, without a doubt. And the entire time I'm sitting there going, I'm writing to a plan. I can't go chasing Melissa. I can't do that. I'm writing to a plan, and I'm just trying to write to this plan. So I saw your competitiveness a little bit earlier.
And you know what? I had no plans to work that hard that morning, but when I saw you, I was like, oh, it's on. It's on. And I was like pedaling my heart out, and I thought, what am I doing? Where am I going with this?
That's so funny. I was coming at it from the giver's gain perspective and giving you high fives, and you were trying to just skunk me the entire time.
You are. I feel a little bad about that.
No need to feel bad. It's really, I use it as a self-management tool of like, when am I triggered by what, and of being awareness. But it was just absolutely so great. See, I just wanted to make sure everybody knows Melissa absolutely beat me by the end of the class, for sure. All right. So a couple more things of it. So I guess you kind of answered this a little bit, but other types of networking and marketing that you've been doing and BNI, how do those compare? Because you met Cindy probably at a networking event, because she's the networking queen. What did you feel was the difference between what you had experienced before and your overall experience with BNI?
The accountability, for sure. Yeah. I love Dr. Meisner's plan because it holds everybody accountable. You're there, you're going to dedicate the finances and the time and your dedication, granted, to make money, but you're not going to make money if nobody else is going to help you in the process. It is the giver's gain. So granted, the chamber is fantastic and other groups are just as great, but there is no accountability. Nobody is pushing you to help someone as much as you want to help in return. And then that's by far why BNI is so successful and has been so successful for me.
So that theme has been coming up for me a lot this year of like, if there's anything we can do better is to hold each other more accountable. I've always said I have to give you permission to hold me accountable, but once I get that permission, then you can, or if I give you permission to hold me accountable, you can then come to me and say, hey, Meg, you're not pulling your weight here. Like what's going on? Because we've agreed to have that kind of relationship. And I think that sets successful business people apart from others, is how accountable and how much do they stick to what they said they were going to do, and how much are they putting in the effort as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's interesting. It's almost like you have a radar in every facet of your life, whether it's a business or a social situation. I'm constantly aware of people who need help. I've become people's go-to person. I got a text from a friend of mine who asked me a question. She said, it's funny, I'm texting you almost every day this week asking for an electrician, for a gardener, for a landscaper. She's like, you happen to know everybody. I said, I don't know everybody, but I know the right people. And not so much just my chapter, but cross chapter. I passed a cross chapter referral just 2 days ago. So I'm constantly aware of who needs what and how I can pass that referral to someone else. It's just become a weird sixth sense, I guess you could say.
Well, and that is one of the most recent book that came out. And I don't have a copy in front of me, or else I would share it. But the connector effect talks about becoming a master connector, and exactly what you just described, just as what you do for people, is what a master connector does for people, right? It's that person might not have been in your business sphere; it could have been in your personal sphere, but they know you as the person who knows people and can solve that problem every single time.
And I'm almost hoping that other people in my chapter feel the same way. I know janitorial is not an easy sell. It doesn't come up in cocktail conversations, but when the opportunity arises, I get strong referrals from my chapter, and a lot of times those referrals become tier 2 and then tier 3, and oftentimes it was just one person who was observant, that all of a sudden it kind of snowballs. And so what I can put into it, I know that my chapter members are doing the same thing.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about making referrals easier, because if I'm a massage therapist, janitorial service is probably never going to come up, right? But if I sell telecommunications, phone systems, or I sell office equipment, or those kinds of things, have you identified who those people are that you really should surround yourself with so that you can get and give referrals easily?
Yes. I mean, I've got a list of my upstream and my downstream, to be sure. But I tell you, the person in my chapter who has really helped me the most is Gary Beatles of Reliant Media, because he's going into oftentimes brand new buildings, putting in all their media stuff.
Yes.
And then he instinctively asks, hey, who's going to clean your building? That's where the conversation started. Didn't have to ask the question, but that's what Gary does. And we have gotten so much business just because Gary has really understood the whole B&I concept about referrals.
Well, and so that's the other thing. So you mentioned upstream, downstream, right? We've been talking about that in our region a lot. Like, where's your customer before they need you is the upstream, and who can you ask one question about and find out if there's a referral? And that's exactly what he's doing, right? He's got one question: who's going to clean your? I got mine. Now, who's going to clean your building? So he can do that every single time, which is absolutely awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes it's the weirdest situations that produce the best results.
Yeah, love that. So take us to the moment when you realized B&I really was working to solve all of your problems. Did it happen early? Did it happen late? When did it kind of happen for you?
I think it happened, it was several months in. It's not a quick fix. I can promise you that. It was several months in when it finally clicked, when I felt very comfortable not only discussing my business, but not cold calling, but being bold enough and brave enough to be secure in this plan B of mine. When I could perfect that 45 seconds, or when I could pass the best referral, or understood the difference between a lead and a referral. I think it was gradual, to be honest with you. But now when I look back over that first visit, it's amazing. It's amazing how much I carry myself so much taller as a businesswoman because of B&I. And it's interesting. My husband's even noticed it. He's never attended a B&I meeting before, but he's noticed that I can go in and I can quote a building and I can sell it on my own and not depend on my husband anymore. And that's been phenomenal.
Love it. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. And just for the record, my husband's never been to a B&I chapter meeting either, interestingly enough. So that's much worse on him, I think, than it is on your husband.
I agree.
I just absolutely, I love your story. So is there a part of your story that we haven't touched on yet that you think that our audience would really learn something from and really appreciate?
Well, I think what sets my business apart, and granted, it's not glamorous. It's cleaning toilets, and but everybody needs a clean toilet. But I think it's just the fact that we're a husband and wife team. We've been together for 31 years. The business has been around for like 34 years. And we just focus on being the best we can be. And whether that is taking care of our employees, taking care of our clients, my name, my last name is the business name. I'm not a company that bought the rights to another name. That's my name. And so there's a lot at stake with my name attached to our business. And so we focus so heartedly on just customer retention and understanding that we're so grateful. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. I'm a cleaning company. We could not be more blessed with how we're managing through this time. And so we're going to share that with everybody we can. We're going to be so grateful that we've become so successful for so long. We're not going to take any of that for granted.
And in that, so the cleaning company kind of could have gone either way for you, right? And about this time last year, because everybody was going home and not being in office buildings, and everything needs to be super clean. Where did your business land with all of that?
We only lost 2 clients. One was a restaurant and one was a pediatric office. But the rest of our clients, they either, over half of them actually doubled the amount of business because of the anxiety. And so we were going in and doubling the amount of services that we were giving them. And those were like all the industrial companies we have, the car dealerships, the ones that were still in business. Our daycares and our churches, Megan, I cannot tell you how thankful we are. Not one single church or daycare diminished, canceled, or reduced the amount of work. In fact, a lot of our churches who were closed, they continue to pay us full price. Wow. So we went in and we would do extra work for them. We would pressure wash. We would steam clean their carpets. We would strip and wax their floors. Anything that we could spread the gratitude. They could have said, we're shut. We can't have you. We can't use you. All of our churches paid us the same amount of money. So we're just so thankful for that. And now that we're all sort of hopefully climbing out of the hole, we're signing more businesses left and right. Offices are open. We're going in. We're getting them clean, just for peace of mind. So we've hired 6 new employees over the last 3 months. Just signed a huge veterinarian office last week. So it's been wonderful.
Oh, that's amazing. And then, so for other commercial cleaning companies in other parts of the world, what would you recommend for them if they were looking at BNI?
I would say you're going to have to be patient, but I'm telling you, once you establish yourself in your chapter and you gain the trust of your chapter members, you're going to have to hang on, because you're going to do unbelievable as far as business goes, and the referrals are going to hit you. I'm telling you, I had a cross chapter. John Chambers is one of my favorite people. He's from Keller Williams. Not only do we clean his office because of a referral, but then we are now cleaning a tier 2 office in another part of the county. And now we've just put in 2 more referrals for possibly a tier 3 and tier 4. And John's cross chapter. So, don't just focus on your chapter. Get out there and visit other chapters. I substitute a lot so that I can really get in and pass referrals to other chapters as well. So it's, I can't say enough about BNI. My husband says I live and breathe it, and probably I do.
Well, and I want to say this about how you substitute, because it is very, very different than how some people might substitute. You substitute and you come in and you say, what value can I bring? I mean, I even think you've even had one-to-ones with visitors to help them join the other chapter kind of thing. So you're not just going in to take, you're going in to give something to each group that you're visiting, so that ultimately it would make sense, right? Giver's gain would make sense at that point. So you make a lot of deposits into the relationship too.
And there's one group I substitute quite a bit at, and now they've become so familiar with me and know that I love to get on their calls, that half the time they don't even leave me a 45-second presentation. That it's funny. I'll go in and I'll research their company, and then I'll create a 45-second presentation for them. So I'm learning about their businesses so that I can refer the mortgage lender or the painter or whomever. Yeah. So it's been fun for me to be able to meet other chapters.
Love it. All right. So I want to do the key takeaways that I have gotten from our conversation. Number one, building relationships, right? That is a core value of your business. It's a core value of ours, but everything you have talked about here is about building strong relationships so that you can move forward. Being impeccable with how you are with your clients and the solutions that you're actually providing, because now, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean, obviously the churches would not have done what they did if you were just another, another service as well. And then your big one was using the network to learn other things besides just getting referrals. Asking people who have that experience to share that experience with you as well, which I think is a huge takeaway and a huge value that existing BNI members probably aren't fully taking advantage of.
Yeah, I agree. It's not all about money. BNI is so much more than money. It's about the relationships. It's about the education. It's about understanding that something that was created in 1985, I mean, is bigger and better. I mean, we're all on Zoom now, and it's just a testament to BNI. There's a lot about BNI other than money. There's so much more to that. And that's what I love about it.
And then the biggest one, I think, is you have shared with your network, whether it's your professional one or your personal one, that you are a solutions provider. And ultimately, I think you can absolutely wear the crown of Master Connector at the full-on intent of what it is, because, people are calling you every single day and asking you or texting you every day saying, do you know someone? So I think that's just absolutely tremendous.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for being here. I'm so thankful to know you. You and I are going to be partners in crime as we move forward with a few chapters in Birmingham as well. It's just going to be very, very fun. But I thank you so much for sharing your story and just believing in BNI like you have. You've gone all in on it, and I appreciate that so much.
Well, it's easy when there are people like you who believe in all of us. And to be honest with you, I don't think I was so competitive on Peloton to smoke you. I think I was more being teacher's pet.
That's great. I love it. I love it. But you should have let me win just by a little bit.
Yeah, I thought about that for a few seconds.
No, I actually appreciate it more than I can tell everyone that you got me. That you definitely got me.
Well, I'm older than you, so I had to prove
that something. I have to say, you're a little bit older than I am, and I'm like, you're my poster child of just keep doing what I'm doing, and I will be like Melissa. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Melissa. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
So I want to tell you a little bit about our next show. Melissa already mentioned our next show. We are going to have Sean Troughton on with Temperature Pro, and what is interesting about his story is he went from being a ship's captain to a home inspector to an HVAC company. And he was not an HVAC technician before he got started. Again, his business is focused on relationships and building relationships with his clients. And all he wants is to be a man of integrity, which I'm pretty sure he probably already is, but that is what he is striving to do as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you next week, and have a great week.